So hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. We're moving right along on the old G6. So today we're going to do what most of you guys have been waiting for, the paint and body. We want to get our new panels on the car. We want to fix this mess going on here. We want to start the paint process, get everything dialed in with that. And also I received some more front end parts in the mail today. Check it out. We got some end links. Got a set of those going to go in. They're going to go in place of these old junky ones here that are rattling around. Check it out. Yep, they're wore out. We'll breeze right through that later on in the video, but for now, man, let's just jump right into this body work. In my opinion, you're better off to start with tearing down your old door because we need all these parts. I need the glass, the handle, the inside door panel, the regulator. I need all of that stuff because what we've got here is just a stripped down door. I think it's easiest to do that while it's still on the car, plugged into electricity. That way we can roll up the window up and down. Makes it a little easier to get some of this stuff off of here. So yeah, this is exactly how I would have done it back in the old body shop days. Easy enough just to go ahead and tear the door down, get it done and over with. These are pretty easy to tear down. So this is going to require a torque set. These here. This is probably the first thing I ever bought off of a tool truck when I was in the paint and body business. Man, that's probably almost 15, 16 years ago. This thing is worth its weight in gold. My opinion, they're a must-have. Used to, you'd really only see that kind of stuff on like German cars, but now, man, they're putting them all over everything. Aside from those 3 bolts we pulled out, all that's really going to be left is these clips out here on the end. And these are interesting. If you've ever seen them before, you'll actually push the center in on those. I know normally you're probably used to pulling them out, but you'll push those in. And then you could pry it out like so. And after you pulled that clip out, just take the 2 pieces and put them back together. Just like that. And then once you put it back in, you'll just push this like that. And that kind of spreads that out and helps hold it into the hole. I think we can actually just get in here now and pop this off of here. We'll go ahead and pop this switch out. I'm going to actually use it now that the panel is out of the way. There we go. Yeah, we'll just plug this back in over here. And now we can roll the window up and down and take everything apart. And once we're done with the panel, we'll just kind of put it off in there like so. It ought to be good there. It's got me a razor blade. I'm going to come through and just kind of trim this behind here to get this cover off. This is just a kind of a dust moisture shield. We'll get that out of the way. This is all we're doing, just kind of coming in here and just trimming this off. You could probably rip this off of here just fine, just by pulling on it, but I don't want to take a chance on tearing it all up. So we'll just go ahead and just trim it off. Yep, just kind of take your time and trim it off just like this. That way we can reuse it without it being all torn to pieces. I know a lot of you guys have probably tore into these old cars and seen that someone else was in there before you and made a mess of things, but we're not going to do that. So there you go. We'll throw this in the car with the door panel. Since we got our switch hooked up, we can come in and kind of roll the window down a little bit. It's not going to roll down very much with that gigantic dent in there. That's as much as it gives me right there. But that's enough to kind of relieve the pressure. That way we could come in and pull stuff like this off. It just makes all the belt moldings and things come off a lot easier with the window cracked or down. I'm going to be reusing all these parts, so I want to be careful and not tear them up. We'll get this off here, see if we can do it without bending it. Seems to be coming off nice. There we go. So we'll get that out of the way. Something I like to do is I like to put the screw back in so I don't lose it. Let's go ahead and get this handle out of here. It's pretty simple to get these out. You just want to pull that little plug out, little rubber plug. Inside of here will be another one of those Torx. You might could see it right there. Simple. We're just going to loosen that off. You'll come around to the other side and this will come right off of here. You see that? Oh, there we go. Okay, it came loose. That's perfect. We just kind of wiggle it around a little bit and it'll come loose. I don't want to break that lever off. So there we go. There's the other part of the handle. Don't lose your little gasket there. When it comes to that little plug that we pulled out, I always just put it right back in the hole. And that's where it stays until I need it again. I don't let it float around. I've lost too many of those. I've learned my lesson on that. There's an intrusion beam inside of here. And it's bent that beam in. It really affects our ability to be able to pop that back out. It's so rigid. it came out. Kind of curious if banging some of that out didn't help us with maybe getting this window to roll down a little bit better. Remember, we were kind of stuck. That was as far as we could go before. There we go. All right, awesome. So used to, they would have a couple of bolts, usually maybe a couple 10mm bolts in here that you unscrew and it kind of squeezes together and holds the glass in. Well, these are different. What they've got is this weird little clip inside of here. So yeah, inside this little groove here, there is going to be a little round circle type thing that you got to push out. I've got this guy here. I made this back in my body shop days. This thing is awesome. I use it for pushing out rivets, all kinds of stuff. And what I found is you put it inside of there and tap on it a few taps with a hammer and it'll push that out of there. And it's just a little plastic clip is all it is. Just take my hammer, just like that. I mean, it's literally that easy. Reach in here. On the other side, that's what we just pushed out of that hole. And what it does is when I push it through, it literally gets stuck on the end, and I could just reach around in there and grab it. So with that pushed out of the center, now we can get in here and push out the other part, the outside part, like that. Pretty easy. And it just fell right here onto that intrusion beam. That's the other part. Basically, when you put the inside part in, it swells this out and holds it into the hole, and that is what basically is holding your glass in. See if I can get my trim tool in here, kind of pry out on that clip a little bit. There we go. All right. Now we are free. Our glass is out of the regulator now. That's what we want. Push a little tab in and pull that right off. Super easy. So as of now, our wiring harness is completely free of the door. We could just push it right out of the hole when we actually unbolt the door. So at this point, we're about ready to pull the door off of here. Let's go ahead and get the door catch free. Get this door down here. You want to be real careful messing around. You don't want to pull on your wires real hard. We've got enough slack. That's why we went through and kind of undid everything on the door itself first so we could fish some of this out of here. You could get in here, undo this, and then unplug it on these. Some of these don't have this. Some of this won't have a plug. You'll have to fish the whole wiring harness out through the hole. Luckily here we do have a plug. Makes things a lot easier, but even still, you'll want to go through and kind of free up your harness. It just gives you a little bit more slack to deal with these wires. You don't want to mess up your wiring harness, that's for sure. There we go. That's our harness, and here's our door off the car officially. I'm gonna set it off over here out of the way for now, I guess. So now that we got that out of the way, let's go ahead and install our new door. You might be asking, like, why are you putting the new door on? You haven't painted it yet. We're going to go ahead and install it and put it in the shut position because I have a feeling all of this is pushed in and I want to have a guideline of exactly how far to push that out. In other words, I want to repair this till it fits the door. The door's right. There's nothing wrong with the door. So if we make this fit the door, we know this will be right as well. Get our bolts started here. These bolts have shoulders on them, so there's no adjustment. You just put them on and go. So like I said, there is no adjustment on those bolts. They have shouldered heads on them, so they only go in one way. You can't scoot them around. Just to give you an idea of the difference one panel to another can make. Look at this. We have no gap whatsoever. None. All of our gap is up here between the two doors. Now, how do we fix that? Well, I'm going to show you. First thing we're going to do is we're going to come in and we're going to crack these loose just barely. I do not want these to be loose to where it'll actually move on its own. I only want it to be just loose enough that it'll move with what we're about to move it with, basically. Just a little bit here, not a lot. And that will be all it takes. Okay, now for the fun part. I'm gonna take my air hammer here. You don't have to have an air hammer. You could use a regular hammer and a block of wood, I suppose. But we're gonna use our air hammer. This thing does not mess around. We don't wanna mess all our paint up, so I will take a rag and cover the head of my hammer with it. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come in here and hit this hinge. We're just gonna knock it forward just barely. I mean, we don't need but maybe 1/8 of an inch at best. So I'm telling you, man, with just a little bump of this hammer, we will move this door, I promise. Man, I think that moved a mile, to be honest. Probably too far. I don't know if you guys can see the little ring around the edge here. It definitely moved. That's a sure sign that it moved. Maybe too much even. Let's see. We'll shut this door, see what our gap looks like. It's starting to open up. Let's go a little more. I'd say we need a little more at the top for sure. If we bump the top hinge, that should open that up. Oh, much better. Look at that. I'm telling you, man, it just does not take a lot at all. You want to match up your body lines here, make sure they're good. I do believe that's a pretty decent gap all the way down. It's nice and even. Let's see what it looks like with the door shut. See what this looks like. I think it's a bit tight if you ask me. Maybe we'll bump the back door back just a hair because that's not too bad. It's a little tight in my opinion. And I think we could spare the room back here. So let's see what we could get done here. Let's try it out. Okay, here we go. Let's bump this back the other way. That's not too bad. Let's see what the front door looks like now. I think that's a lot more acceptable. What do you think? Nice even gap all the way down. Back door matches. So I suppose now you'd want to come back in here and tighten up these hinge bolts again. Remember, we just barely cracked them loose. The reason we just barely cracked them loose is because if you went in and undid them all, the door would just fall and be loosey-goosey all over the place. This way the door stays firmly attached to the car and you could just kind of bump it around and make these slight little adjustments as you go versus trying to do it all at once while somebody tries to hold it or while you're trying to hold it with one hand, tighten it with the other. It just becomes very, very frustrating. But this way, look, we are locked in place at this point. The door is right where it needs to be. All we got to do is come back in, take these back off up in here, right? You remember those? Pop the door back off, paint it, do everything we need, put it back on the car, and it will bolt up exactly right because those bolts are shouldered. There's no adjustment there. Your adjustment is here, and now we've got that one set. So now we can come in here and we can work this edge. You see how we're touching here and we're touching over here? Well, we don't want that. We want it to look like this. So we need that consistency all the way through here, and we're going to use our new door as our guide. So once we get all of our metal work to where it all lines up perfectly, and we got ourselves a nice little flow through here where it all looks the same, we'll know we're right. Okay, so for the fun stuff, man, I got me a 320 grit Rolock disc going on my little angle grinder here. These are cool. They just twist right on here. Look at this. Pretty friggin' awesome. So let's get in here and remove all of this paint first step. Let's get this rubber out of the way. I don't want to damage it while I'm doing all of this. Can get your fingers in. There we go. All right, that's coming off of there. Get that out of the way. Some of you guys are going to get on to me and be like, man, you need to cover that interior. Dude, that interior is filthy. I could care less. We're gutting all of that here in just a little while, so don't even worry about it. For now, let's just worry about this. I'm just going to remove the paint. That's what we're doing right now. First step. So you can see here we got all the paint removed. Normally I would use a stud gun and come in here and weld these studs right here to all my little low spots. That way I could put a dent puller on it and pull those back out. My stud gun it's on the fritz. I don't know what's going on with it. I don't know if I need to replace it, take it apart and fix it or what have you. But we're gonna go the next best thing. We're still gonna put these on here, but I'm just gonna have to like manually weld them on here with my welder. So we got the studs welded on, and those are my worst 3 spots. These other ones aren't too bad. We kind of tap around on them, I think, but these right here are the worst. They really got in there and pried on it on those spots. I want to go ahead and pull those out while we kind of tap up on this, and that will give us our flat surface back. You can see here where it's kind of puckered out there, here, and that's from pushing in, and then it just spreads everything out around it. So that'll get rid of our high spots out here and our high spots under here, like I said, while bringing the low spot back out. So this here's my favorite dent puller, and it's simply just a pair of vice grips welded onto an actual dent puller. They sell these already. I made this one probably about 15 years or so ago, and it's worked very well all these years. Just get it adjusted to fit your stud. Something like that, clamp it on. You want to kind of hold it. If you don't, when you pull, it'll snap loose. So just kind of hold it there and just come in and start tapping this stuff out. Weld it on better first. Clamp it onto your stud and just start pulling. It won't take a whole lot, and that dent will start coming out of there. And as it does, we want to come in and tap on our high spots. Remember, under here was high, out here was a little high. So let's kind of work that. It doesn't take a lot. Okay, come in, maybe pull on it just a hair more. This is very thin sheet metal. It does not take a lot. This is our filler we'll be using today, some 3M. Pretty good stuff. It's only about $24 for a whole gallon, which is really cheap when you're talking about filler. Back when in the body shop, I used to use filler that cost $100 a gallon. Pretty pricey. So 25 bucks for a gallon doesn't actually sound too bad. Here's the blue hardener. They've got red hardener, white hardener. I don't know, it doesn't really matter. I usually use the blue. You want to kind of knead it around a little bit like so, or otherwise you'll just be pushing out nothing but liquid. All right, time for the fun stuff. Let's get the filler on there. The key to filler, really, in my opinion, is don't put too much hardener in it. That way you'll have plenty of time to work this stuff. Especially when it's hot outside. It's about 90 degrees. And this stuff will firm up on you very, very quickly. So the mud's just about ready to sand. It's still soft, and that's how I like it. I don't want this to be hard like concrete when I go to sand it. To me, it's harder to get your shape that way. So what I'll do is I'll take like kind of an old piece of sandpaper, and I will go along here and just kind of skim over it. I'm not trying to sand this to shape. I'm just trying to kind of knock the sticky glaze off of the outside of it. And I'm going to do this under here where some of the other mud is. Again, I'm not trying to change its shape or try to sand it flat or anything. I'm just getting that sticky residue off, because at this stage it will still have a little stickiness to it, and what that's going to do is that's going to clog up my block, and I don't want that. So now I should be able to hit it with my block. I've got the same sandpaper 40 grit on my block, and I've got me a wire brush as well. This is a clean, designated wire brush that I don't use for anything else. I'm not out cleaning my battery cables off with it or anything like that. I keep this just for my sandpaper. So what I could do is I come in here and I can start sanding this. It's not hard as a rock. It doesn't feel like concrete. It's actually still very soft, which makes it super easy to sand. You can see that the edge starting to roll. That's exactly what we want. And that is turning out pretty straight. I mean, it's not all, remember how weird it was a minute ago? Here's the glaze we're going to be using right here, a little Evercoat metal glaze. There's your part number there. I picked this up at O'Reilly's. I think the mud works good enough. Let's glaze it up. We've already went all around our repair area with 80 grit, kind of smoothed up some of the 40 grit scratches. And now that's where this comes in. This stuff will mix up the same way that mud did. The way the body filler, same exact way, same the same hardener and everything. The stuff is very thin, it spreads really easy, and it will fill in all those little imperfections if we had any tiny little low spots, pinholes, the gouges from the 40 grit like we mentioned before. This stuff's going to take care of it. And the best part is it sands so easy. That mud, the actual filler that we put in, it could be a little harder to sand. That's why we use 40 grit to get the actual shape. And then this stuff will come in behind that and kind of take care of anything else, especially those big gouges that the 40 grit leaves behind. So yeah, that only takes a few minutes for that to harden up, so don't want to use too much of that hardener. You will be wasting, and I hate wasting this stuff. That right there, that bugs me. We switched our block over to some 80 grit. I've got a longer block here as well that I'm going to finish it off with. Start out with a short block just to kind of get it started. Like I said, we'll finish it up with that longer block once this just starts to feather. You guys see here, this is what we're trying to avoid as much as possible. We don't like all that to get stuck on our block. That will make you not cut straight. So, you know, you could take you a stick. A lot of times that'll get it to unlock off of there. You see here where we're starting to feather out all around the edges. That's a good time to switch over to my long block and kind of get it all dialed in. All right, so a little loose masking. You can see there's our final sanding. We went over everything, finished it all out all the way to 150, and then went around the edges with 320, got everything nice and feathered back, and I think primer will fill the rest. You can see we snuck one in off camera up there. Not a big deal, super easy, same process as over here. And now we are ready to clean the surface, which I like to use spray away glass cleaner. This stuff works great. We'll give it a nice little wipe down with some lint-free paper towels, and then we're ready for primer. Here's the primer we're using here. This is a filler primer, so it'll get in there and kind of fill in any of these little scratches that have been left behind. We'll put probably about 3 or 4 coats on. Shake it up real good, just like it's with any spray paint. You're gonna want to shake it for about a minute, and then we'll start hitting it. We'll start off with a light coat at first. Something like that. Let that flash for a minute. I know I've explained this before in other videos. Flashing is just where you're letting this go from a shiny surface to a dull. You want it to be really dull finish when it's done. No more shine, and then you're ready for your next coat. I'll tell you what, when it's 90 degrees, it don't take but a few minutes for this stuff to flash and be ready for that next coat. That's what we're doing here. This is our second coat. This coat will be a little heavier. Kind of a medium wet coat. So there you have it. She's fixed. We're going to have to block all that down in the morning. I'm going to let it sit overnight. That's 3 coats of primer. 1 really light coat in the first for the first coat, and then 2 kind of medium fat coats. And as usual, we're going to want to hit this with a guide coat. You guys have seen me do this before, most of you. You're going to come back and you're going to block all that black guide coat off when it's nice and gray again with none of the black left. You know you got your nice flat surface with no low spots. Any kind of gouges, any kind of imperfections, pinholes, any of that stuff, this stuff will reveal it when you go back and block it off. So just a light little dusting of that is all it takes. And then in the morning, like I said, we'll come out here. I want that primer to set up. You know, 90 degrees, a couple hours, you'll probably be all right, but it's getting late in the evening anyway. This is a good stopping point, so I'll let it set overnight just to be sure. Seemed like a smart idea to go ahead and put in our brand new end links, right? Before we go off in the house. We'll get this done. That way we won't have to mess with it tomorrow. And that's just about going to finish up the front end, I think, unless it needs sway bar bushings. If it does, then we'll swing by the old auto parts store and grab them. They usually have those in stock. I ordered these end links from Rock Auto because They're kind of pricey from AutoZone. Yeah, AutoZone wants like 35 bucks a piece for these, I think, and I can get them both from Rock Auto for, I think, less than that if I remember right. So we'll go over the official numbers when we're done with all of this, but you can see how easy they go in, man. I mean, a couple of bolts, tighten them up, one up at the top here. Then of course you'll have one down here on the bottom as well. So we just put the other one in on the other side, and look, you can bang on this sway bar, no more noise. So I don't think it even needs sway bar bushings. We'll know more next time we'll get it out on the road, but we may have just taken care of all of our front end issues. So that'll be nice. We get that all put back together and it's all nice and quiet now. Well, good morning, everybody. Well, it's morning for me. I don't know what time of day it is for you. I did go ahead and let our primer sit overnight. I did a little work off camera. You can see there the door had a dent right there with a big eyebrow right here. It also had a big dent here, and it had a little weird something going on down there. So anyway, it ought to be good now. We'll give it a quick block. We got about 3 coats of primer on there, just like we did up here on the rest of it. So it's all ready to go. It's all ready to block. Let's get it done. This is what I'm using. I got me a little block here with 320 grit wet paper. I am going to wet sand this stuff. Just kind of helps keep down with dust. You can do it dry. You could do it however you want. It's up to you. I've also got a long block here for some of the bigger areas. You know, you want to hit some of this stuff, especially this door with a longer block. So that ought to come in handy for that. Again, 320 grit sandpaper. That's what the guide coat, the black guide coat that we sprayed on earlier, this is what that reveals. You see those? Well, we want to sand until that goes away. Once all that's gone and we're back to just gray only, we know we have a nice straight uniform finish for our paint to go on to, because once we hit this with our color and it turns shiny, if there's anything going on there, you will see it. It'll magnify it. Without that guide coat on there, it would be really hard to keep track of what's sanded and what's not. And you know, if you have any low spots, if you have any sanding scratches left behind from those aggressive sandpapers we were using earlier, you see how the black guide coat is going away and we're just left with this little spot here. We'll keep going over it. Don't sit and try to focus on that spot until it's gone. You want to keep going over this evenly using your crosshatch pattern, your 45-degree angles. You know, first this way, and then we're going to switch back and go this way, and we just keep going over this, and eventually it'll all blend together and that spot will start to go away. And if it doesn't, there's other ways to make it go away. Don't just keep, you don't want to dig you out a low spot. You want to keep going over this nice and evenly. It's pretty easy. I definitely want this brake light out of the hole. It's just 2 bolts, hold it in, and then pop the little plug loose here, like so. Tuck it down in there for now. Put these guys back on so we don't lose them. Just put it in the trunk for now. That'll make it where we can sand around this edge real nice. But you can see here how much easier that makes it to sand, and it was just a couple of bolts, super easy. Do yourself a favor and just kind of get up in your jams. Clean them out best you can. The best way to avoid dirt and stuff like that in your paint is just to get rid of it. Now we will be masking these areas off, but it's just so much dirt and such a chance of it blowing out into your paint. I mean, think about it. You're going to come through here with a paint gun, you know, spraying this panel. It's going to blow down inside of there. It will blow that dirt out of that gap in there, out of that jam. So it's best just to get rid of it. Wash all that stuff right down in there, and it'll run on through and hit the ground. Went ahead and took the striker and stuff out, just a couple of bolts to get those out, and now we don't have to tape around them. My opinion, it's actually easier to take some of this stuff off than it is to tape around it. I hate taping around stuff if I don't have to, especially if it's just a couple bolts holding it on. Just the same as with the rest of it, you're just going to do your 45-degree crosshatch pattern throughout the whole thing until you get it all this black guide coat sanded back off. You can see how fast it sands down. This is just one pass. You just seen it, one pass through there. We ain't even changed directions yet, and we've already knocked that much of it off. So, you know, a couple more passes, we'll probably have that all nice and straight. So with that done, I'm going to go ahead and remove this piece of trim. These are riveted on, unfortunately. So you will have to get in there and remove the rivets however you choose. Sometimes you can knock them out, and then sometimes you'll have to drill them out. So we're not reusing this one. We don't care. We got the one off the other door. Now we can get in here and start scuffing the inside of the door. Not to worry, we will be taking the door back off, but I figured while it's on the car, a little easier to deal with, we'll go ahead and sand down most of it, get it out of the way. So we're moving on to the front door. I wanted to show you guys something. Normally, when you go to take a mirror off, it'll have a plug just on the other side of the mirror here that you can unplug and then take the mirror off. But General Motors wasn't so kind on this one, and I guess they weren't with the program just yet in 2006. So what they got is they got a wiring harness that actually goes in here and goes down here to the mirror switch. Kind of sucks. It means I got to pull the door panel and everything off, which kind of sucks because on this particular model, you don't even have to pull the door panel off to get the handle out. So it's a damn shame you got to go ahead and pull it off anyway to take the mirror. But sometimes you can get around that. So what I've done is I've already gone in here and loosened the bolts off. There's 3. There's one here. Pull the little plug out. In fact, I'm going to put that back in there so I don't lose it. And then just right behind this little cover here, there's 2 more down inside of there. Pretty easy to get to. You just get you a little 10mm wrench down inside of there and you'll be fine. So why would you want to do all of that? Well, now the mirror's loose, right? And I can actually get in here and sand and kind of just move the mirror. Look at that. See, I can move the mirror and I can sand up inside of there. And then when I'm ready to paint, you know, obviously we'll tape it off. But when I'm ready to paint, I know I've got this sanded all the way up to the edge of the mirror and beyond. So we won't have to worry about anything peeling around the edges like we see a lot. I know we've seen that a lot. Paint jobs where everything's peeling around the edges of everything. The door handles, the mirrors, the belt load, and all that stuff. Well, that's because they didn't take anything apart and they have a hard time sanding right up against that stuff. So I just wanted to show you, sometimes you can get around stuff like that without having to get in there and pull a bunch of stuff apart, just by being kind of sneaky, you know. Doesn't necessarily have to come all the way off, just loosen it up. So here's our new used bumper. She's in bad shape. You can see, I think somebody painted this. They probably painted over raw plastic without using an adhesive promoter, and this is what'll happen. You'll take it to the car wash and you will literally blow the paint right off of it over time, and that's kind of what's been going on here, I think. But we've been working on it. Over here on the other side, basically just stripping all of that paint right off of there, getting back down to that raw plastic. You can see there, especially across the front here, where it takes all the abuse every time it gets a slight little rock chip or anything, and then you come back and you hit it with the car wash, it starts to work away at that rock chip, and before you know it, it starts peeling around and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Around on the sides, not really an issue with that because the side of it doesn't take all the abuse like the front of it does. So in that area, we could just kind of buzz it down a little bit, not a big deal. But up here, we're gonna have to strip it all the way across. So I'm gonna do the other side. I'll show you how I was doing it. Getting a little work done off of camera. There's our door all sealed up, ready to go. That's one even coat of sealer. As for the bumper, this is plastic, and I think I made mention before, anytime you're spraying raw plastic, you do want some adhesive promoter. You don't want to just paint right over that raw plastic. So we're going to come in here and we're going to hit all the raw plastic. You don't have to hit out here where it's still got paint on it. Only in here where the plastic is. And generally what I do with this stuff is I will put a nice even coat on it, and then I'll wait a couple of minutes and I will go back and put another coat on it, and usually by then I'm good to go. So I've let it sit for about 10 minutes. I think we're ready. We can start putting some sealer on it. We're just using a shaker can sealer. I got this stuff at Walmart. It's not going to take a whole lot. Just one coat is all we need. Just like so, we'll get it all covered up. So here's our paint right here. Picked this up down at the O'Reilly's. Check it out. I think that's going to work. But unfortunately, I think we're going to have to save that for another video. I mean, hell, that's a whole video by itself. Some of you guys are wanting more videos, so I figured, you know, hey, what better way to make videos than take you through the entire process. I know some of you guys like that. I know some of you guys would rather wait and see the end results. That's cool too, whatever. But if you're into knowing the whole process of what I put these flips through, most of them, well, here you go. This is perfect videos for you, the whole series. I think on the next one, we will definitely get it painted, probably put back together as well. And we'll be looking at getting that started on that detail job. I think I've made mention already. I cannot wait to tear into this interior and get her all shined up and smelling good. You guys definitely don't want to miss that because I have a feeling this interior is going to clean up real nice. And we're going to gut it. I'm taking it all the way down to the sheet metal. But hey, thanks for joining me. We still got lots to do on this one, so be sure to check me out on the next one. And for now, I'm going to get on out here. Please like, share, subscribe, all of that good stuff. Don't forget my Instagram, link in the description, and Facebook, Weird Beard on Facebook. I'm going to get on out of here. Thanks for watching, everybody.